Hey, what's up, Dom?
Hey, hello, Lawrence.
Hi, how you doing? So,
Good to see you.
th-
Great.
good to see you too. Yeah, I feel like I just talked to you in like 10 minutes ago or something.
Yeah.
Just did.
So let's pretend.
Yeah. So, yeah, let me introduce you first. So, before we start, just want to say thank you to everyone yang udah join di IG Live bersama dengan SAE Jakarta. Hari ini kita kedatangan tamu yang cukup keren, yaitu Dominic Au. Dominic itu adalah project manager dari Asian Sound Machine, which is the company yang create the hydrasynth. Nah, hydrasynth itu apa? That's a synth yang dirilis di tahun 2019 dan setelah rilis cukup dapat review yang sangat oke dan bahkan menang beberapa award untuk berbagai macam majalah music production gitu ya. So, nah Dominic ini domisilinya di Hong Kong, so most likely kita hari ini akan ngobrolnya dalam bahasa Inggris ya guys. So anyway, uh, so Dominic, thank you for joining us, and why don't you introduce yourself, because instead of me talking about you, you can introduce yourself.
Sure.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much for inviting for this talk. It's always exciting to share stuff that we are passionate about to the crowd, no matter who are in the field or interested in this field, right? And of course, thanks SAE for this opportunity. It's great. Well, I'm the product manager of Argent Sound Machines, like Lawrence said. A co-designer for the hydrasynth. I'm a music producer myself and the founder of our electronic duo, Polly Pumpkins, as well. And we're based in Hong Kong. I'm also a fellow Ableton Certified Trainer, like Lawrence, and that's also how we met.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Dominic. Yeah, so like when we met, right? I think we met in like 2019. I think mid 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
during
yeah,
during a Ableton certification event, and
yeah,
we didn't really talk to, right? Because we were like super stressed
yeah.
out.
No,
So, but yeah,
yeah.
but, but yeah, so we met there, but we didn't really talk. And then after the event, which is about a week, and then we just kind of like went our own separate way. And then I don't know what happened. What actually happened that we ended up like reconnecting. I
Well, I
think.
think that after the event, we went out once, right? And we talked about
Yeah, yeah.
synthesizers a little bit. And you
Hmm.
said you have a Juno 106 that's waiting for repair. And
Until
later
today.
we talked on Messenger about that. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one day, I think you just asked, dude, let's collapse. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and then we collaborated.
Yeah, and then we make some tune together and release it on Spotify and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
so yeah, so let's talk about Hydrasynth. You know, the Hydrasynth.
sure.
When first time I heard about it, that was like actually from you directly. It was like in our group. You just kind of like sent this announcement about this new synth called Hydrasynth, which is at the time I was like strictly the in the box kind of guy, like I don't
Hmm.
I don't really touch hardware synth. I mean, I used to have hardware synth, but it get to the point where like I was really convenient. I think the convenience of working with software only kind of at that
Hmm.
time outweigh working with hardware. So I was kind of scoff at it. I was like, who'd want to buy a hardware synth? At that time at least. I was thinking like that. So I just saw that announcement and I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool, but big deal. And then couple months later, I start reading all these magazines. Like because like I read magazines like Computer Music and Future
Hmm.
Music. I read those two magazines like religiously, and Music Tech too. And there's a review of your synth, that's making the and I think it got score 9 out of 10 or something like that. So I was thinking, wow, this must be something, right? Because people talk about it. And then I think not too long after that, it starts getting like people start saying this is a synth of the year. And then like I was watching YouTube and I was watching this guy, Bo Beats. And I mean, it sounds like the guy like found the love of his life, when he's talking about your synth. So
yeah.
so I kind of like it kind of got me curious, so about this synth, because like I'm like kind of like, wow, it's it really that good? Some people even mention like it's basically Serum, but it's a hardware, which is like I love Serum. I mean, like who doesn't love Serum, right? So
Right.
I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I thought of it. Wait a minute, I know the guy that made these. So then I started asking you questions about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Cool. Actually, what you mentioned about soft synths is kind of started the concept of this project. That's what we wanted to do, to have a lot of expressiveness, but with the power of soft synths, right? Because a lot of people like to work in the computer, because you can get very powerful engines easily, like compared to hardware. So that's what we targeted, to make a friendly interface that can be easily understood, and also very complex engine that you can do sound designs right away. So besides the engine, we also put quite a lot of effort in the expressiveness. So we were inspired by the famous synthesizer Yamaha CS80, the one Vangelis used on the Blade Runner soundtrack, right? It has the ribbon and polyphonic aftertouch. So polyphonic aftertouch is you can do per voice modulation on the keys. So instead of always getting the maximum pressure to control all voices, you can do independent modulations to make it a really humane playing. And that's something huge. But besides this expressiveness, actually, we put a lot of different things in it to make a lot of possibilities in the sound shaping. So like on analog synths, you have raw waveforms, right? We can do that, but we also added wave scan, wave morphing. You can build your own wave table and morph between them to build your own sound palette. And also mutant to mutate the sounds throughout the signal flow. And mentioning about the signal flow, we also laid out on the panel. So we also wanted to make sure when people approach the synth, they can understand the engine right away, that they don't have to get the manual and read before actually playing on it. Because at the end of the day, it's an instrument, right?
Yeah, that's what I love about it, right? Because like I finally got one on my hand, So when I got it, I didn't even open the manual or read it or whatsoever. And then I just kind of look at it, and then it just makes sense right away. It's just like when I saw it, I was like, wow. And this is me coming from like software background. And then when I was playing with that, I was just like, I understood it. It's like, that's one of the things that's like I always find like really difficult for people who's coming from software and then going to the hardware. How like things are like, because we're like so spoiled with like having everything on display, right? You can see like how like the wave is being affected by whatever envelope that you set up and stuff like that. And then here, you guys actually have a screen that shows that, which is really awesome. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
we well we play synths ourselves, so we also don't like very deep manual diving, right? So we also make the interface to be like that, all things on screen right away. And also besides the expressiveness and the engine, we also make the connectivity a thing. So we have CV connection. You can use it with modular synths to expand it. And also, of course, MIDI and also MPE, the new thing, the MIDI polyphonic expression. So yeah, it can really interact with other gears well.
Yeah, and that's what's great about it, right? Like you guys released that. I think it's like because prior to Ableton Live coming out, I wasn't even aware of such thing called MPE, right? I have no idea what that is. So like when in the beginning when I read the literature for the hydrasynth, it's mentioning like poly aftertouch and all this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what that means. Those are like basically meaningless until Ableton Live 11 came out and it supports MPE, and then they show us what it is. And then I said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wow,
Right.
the hydrasynth can actually do that. That's pretty awesome. I mean, like you guys' timing are just like impeccable. So that's
Yeah. The great thing is
very good.
more developers are using this technology,
Hmm.
using this
Yeah,
protocol.
yeah. So it's amazing how people's perception about hardware kind of changed, right? Like
Mm.
I remember like a few years back, people are basically like migrating from hardware to software completely. Let it be synthesizer or even like audio processor and all this stuff. People are like migrating to software. And
Mm-hmm.
then now what I noticed is like it seems to be hardware, especially in the synthesizer scene, are coming back, you know.
Mm.
So I
Yeah.
was wondering though, like uh what makes you guys decided, in this especially, well, this is of course you guys did build this all the way before the pandemic, so that probably
Mm-hmm.
doesn't factor. But uh, what is it that make you guys decided to release it as a hardware? Because look, I was watching some chat between you and your boss Glenn Darcy. And
Mm-hmm.
he's talking like how you guys started with it was like built on Macs or something, right? Was it the software
Oh,
tools?
we used Max as a controller to
Yeah.
play with the early prototype.
Mhm. Because like I mean
Yeah.
like if you're using Macs to build that, I mean it means it could have been easily implemented as a software instead of hardware, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um.
instead you guys go with the hardware route. What was it that makes you guys?
Well, to us, hardware feels more like an instrument and something that's tactile and touchable. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's always irreplaceable. But not saying a soft synth is. I mean, everyone has their own workflow and they can use them whenever needed. Like us, we use both hardware synths and software synths. But
Mm-hmm.
hardware synths has its own place, I think. They can be
Yeah.
inspiring in some kind of way. And for myself, I can get out of the routine software operation. And I mean, when I start to produce music, sometimes I would drag the same instrument and then build the similar things. But with hardware, you're like exploring touchable things instead of mouse clicking. That's what
Yeah,
I
that's true.
enjoy in music making, and it is similar to like playing some instruments that's not familiar for you. Like I don't play
Mm-hmm.
guitar, and I try to play guitar just for example. That's the mentality, and I
Okay.
think instruments that have their own personalities because they are touchable and they have their own restrictions. That's also what gives them that personality. And the design and the engine, which shape how it sounds and interact with the user. Even similar engine products can have very different interface that interacts with users completely different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because
So yeah.
no, because I find it like what you're saying, how like we're using hardware take you
Mm-hmm.
out from the routine, because yeah, I understand what you mean when like I'm working with software with, let's say I'm trying to create some sound with Serum. I just have like
Mm-hmm.
certain way of working with Serum or using Wavetable on Ableton. It's like I already have like my way of working with that. But if you're using synthesizer hardware, especially some
Mm-hmm.
like the older stuff, like the one where you cannot store any preset,
Yeah.
I think what's great about that, this kind of hardware is how like you have that one sound and then you turn it off, and then somebody might play around with the knob, and then you turn it on, it's gonna be completely different. You
Yeah.
might remember how to recreate that sound, but that same exact sound, you'll never get that again. I think that's
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
kind of cool about that
Exactly.
hardware. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get more humane results or not, I mean, imperfect results. For
Mm-hmm.
soft synths, I mean, you can mimic that humane feeling of it, but you need to spend time on it, right? You need to draw the automation and mimic
Yeah.
those things.
And
But if
then
you
that makes
control,
that makes everything too perfect, right? When you draw all that automation.
It's the opposite. When you build something, it's so perfect that you would like to add some kind of unstableness to it, and that kind of feel to it. Else, it's too perfect and kind of cold sometimes.
Yeah.
And also hardware synths. For some vintage ones, especially, they have stories and history behind them.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can learn about what famous musicians use on those music you like, and how the designers were inspired back then. These are also interesting stories that can inspire you to make music.
Yeah, and that's even inspire you guys with the design of the hydrasynth, right? If I'm not mistaken, I think we had to talk about that. How?
Yeah, we have a lot of inspiration from a number of synthesizers, like the CSAT, the Oberheim Matrix 12 or Expander, and also from the Prophet T8, I think, the polyphonic aftertouch. We got that feeling and translated it to the modern technology.
Yeah, speaking of like, how like you mentioned Vangelis with the Blade Runner soundtrack and the Yamaha CS80 and all that stuff. By the way, if you have a hydrasynth, there is this one really most popular preset that comes with it. They call it the Blade Runner title, I think.
Yeah, Blade title.
Is it Blade title? Yeah, which I use all the time because it's just like so good, Because I have a funny story about that one, because I used to do my YouTube channel regularly, giving tutorials on sound design. And I was trying sound design. I was doing a tutorial on how to do the Vangelis sound, the Blade Runner sound on Serum. And some random guy gave me a comment. Nah, man, it's like this one. It sounds pretty close, but it's just not expressive. It's like it's like it doesn't move like how the one Vangelis does. And then I didn't know anything about MPE or whatsoever, or Poly AT or whatsoever. So whatever he said makes no sense to me at the time. And then now I know why it was. Now I know exactly what he meant, because mine was pretty static because it doesn't have that movement. Because even the Blade Runner sound, if you just play it on a regular keyboard, it sounds completely different than like. I mean, I don't have the keyboard hydrasynth, so I don't know. I can't vouch for that. But even with the desktop using the pressure point, you make it come alive. Make that preset come alive. That's kind of like one of those things that I think is just amazing and great.
Yeah. When we released the hydrasynth, some guy said, "Oh, I'm not a keyboard player. I don't know how to play polyphonic aftertouch." Well, that's an instrument. You got to try it. Actually, when you press on it, you can get it right away.
Well, that's kind of like one thing that I regret about getting the desktop, right? Because that's the first thing that I say. I don't play keyboards, so I don't need that, because I can barely play correct, let alone having to think about like playing around with the polyphonic aftertouch and stuff like that. But now I kind of regret it, but oh well, you just have to live with it, right? Either I'm gonna sell that and buy another one, or I don't know. but even then, or buy a MPE controller, maybe that's the other way around to do it.
Yeah, also a good solution.
But yeah, so now you mentioned earlier about how you can patch this into a modular system, right?
Yeah.
And to some of you that don't know, right now, especially in the whole synthesizer scene, modular is making like a comeback big time, right? Like everybody seems to be like that seems to be like everyone's ultimate goal is to have like some kind of modular setup. Even at one point I was tempted to do that. I talked to you, and you only smirk at me and just say, "Be careful, man." That's all you said to me. Because the big story is like, I asked him, dude, I think I want to build my own modular setup. I think I'm just gonna build a simple one. Just gonna buy like a digital oscillator, and then a couple ADSR module, and then couple filter and an amp, and that should be it. and I'm done. And then Dominic was just saying, well, that's what they always said when they want to start. And I actually, well, thank God I never go down that route. I'm just gonna stick with like whatever. That's kind of like a thing that's already done, you know. That's because
For now.
yeah, no, for real. Yeah,
Okay.
you never know. But yeah, but that's the thing, you know. But you know, it's like how like modular is making this big comeback. Why do you think though? Why it's like it's making a comeback? Why does people kind of like are like so wants to get that whole modular setup? I mean, you have a modular setup, right?
Yeah, I
I
have a
think you
small one
yeah.
over here. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, because modular synths can have infinite possibilities, right? Compared to like keyboard synthesizers or semi-modular synthesizers, they're more like fixed signal path. And you have to live with that fixed signal path. So for
mhm,
completely open system, you can design by yourself. You have full flexibility. Um, you can combine modules that you want to have in your system, and once you build them, you can cross-patch them, and make really interesting patches. Because there are so many synthesizers out there, right? Nowadays,
mhm,
you want to have your own signature sounds. So
yeah.
people would like to build their own system, build their own style, own signature designed sounds. So also on modulars, there's no limitation to whether they're analog or digital. You can have some analog modules, some digital modules, some gadgets, and combine them, even like drum
Mhm,
machines, samplers, and then just do a real-time complete off-the-box track right away, even in
mhm,
performance, right? Yeah, so you can do design and customize and build your own system, and then there you go, you have your own
yeah.
sounds.
And you're
Yeah,
avoiding
and
that whole like, oh, this is like it sounds like a book or this sounds like a chord, the kind of thing, right? So you can avoid that
right,
pitfall.
right,
Yeah.
right, and also
But
with semi-modulars like the say Korg MS-20, you can insert to the breakpoints and do things with your system, modular system, and also hydrasynth. You can also do modulations from the hydrasynth or from
mhm,
some interesting modular Eurorack modules back to the hydrasynth, like
yeah.
a lot of fun stuff that you
Well,
can
actually,
just
yeah.
imagine.
But you can actually do that same thing with the Hydra synth using your existing synthesizer too, right? It doesn't have to be a modular setup, right? Can you?
No, we have a lot of modulation slots in it,
Yeah.
so the mindset is similar. You patch stuff very with a lot of flexibility,
So
and
I can just plug in my micro brute into the Hydra synth and then
yeah, you
set
can
it
have the
into
audio input, a mono audio input with it, and then
yeah,
get some interesting results. Say use it in FM, use it in some mutant sources, or
yeah.
just use it to run through the audio effects.
Okay. I
Yeah,
need to try that.
it's actually like just like patching on modulars, but
Yeah.
it's like virtually happening instead.
Hmm. Yeah, even like if you guys ever try, like if you guys like synthesizer, you guys should check out the Hydra synth because even though it's not modular per se, it's a digital synth, right? Even though it's not modular, but the way they design everything, it's like even that design concept, you guys are using that concept, that modular concept, right? By like setting up the filter as its own module, the oscillator as its own module, and you patch them like the way you do it in the modular synthesizer, but instead of patching a cable, you're doing it virtually, like what you mentioned. So
Yeah,
it's a
and
fun.
yeah, you can bridge it with real cables on the CV
Mhm.
IO. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's really fun stuff. Yeah, like seriously, if you guys like synthesizer, you guys should check it out because like Because like when I got mine, I think for like straight 3 days, I didn't come out from my studios. I just there making patches, not necessarily good, but made something. I guess it's so fun to do it if you're into that kind of thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so we're talking about modular, and then uh, we previously we mentioned about software, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though, uh, I mean, like software itself, even though now we're all into the whole hardware thing, I still find it to have its place in music production, right? Some like
Sure. Yeah.
Arturia recently dropped the Pikmin 3, which
Mm-hmm.
is like amazing. After I tried it, I was like, wow, like, and that's kind of like where I'm going now. Is like, that's one thing that I always find the whole digital technology win over analog is the ability for you to constantly upgrade them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like I know the hydrasynth when it first came out, the hydrasynth have a LFO and a step mode where like it was max to 16 step or something, and then with the right, it was 16, right? Isn't it?
I'm not sure, 8 or 16, 6,
Yeah,
maybe
but it
16.
was it was it was a small number of step, and then when they update the firmware, it goes up to like 64, which is
Yeah.
try that with your Minimoog. That's never gonna happen, with your Minimoog. Like like I have one of my favorite synth other than the Hydra synth is the Arturia Micro Freak, which is pretty inexpensive for a synthesizer,
Mm-hmm.
at like $300 or 5 juta, 5 million. And that thing's I think it's like amazing, like it's like this little thing that feels like a toy because it's like so light. But
Mm-hmm.
and then they right now they're already up to version 3 on their firmware. And what I love about that synth is like how like every time they update the firmware, they have a new synth engine with it. So now it's up to like I think there's like 9 or 10 synth engine in there, which is like pretty awesome. When it started, I think there was like 7. So
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of like that's one of those things that like the advantage of being digital, right? Compared
Yeah.
to is that one of the driving force on why you guys choose the whole digital platform instead of going with like analog? Because like a lot of people basically out there are like making analog still, right? Because supposedly analog is better. That's what they're saying.
Well, we might think in the way that we want to have a more wide, wider sound palette instead of thinking whether we want to do analog or digital. And
Mm.
also, given that Glenn did quite a lot of analog synths back in Arturia, right?
Oh yeah. Speaking
And
of
we
Glenn, let me explain a little bit about Glenn. Yeah. So
sure,
so uh, Dominic's boss is the lead designer for Hydrasyn. He's the lead designer, right? Was he?
yeah,
Or what?
the
Yeah, he's
director for the
the
product.
product director
Yeah.
for the Asian Sound Machine. Glenn Darcy. He was the product director at Arturia, if I'm not mistaken. So all this Arturia synthesizer that you guys might know, like the Micro, the Mini Brute, the Matrix Brute, and then I think even Micro Freak, he has a hand on that, right?
Yeah.
And some of their synthesizer, their soft synthesizer, like all the Arturia V series, I think he has a hand on that too. So
Yeah.
so that's his boss now. So from he moved from Arturia to Asian Sound Machine. So
Yeah.
so you guys are like legit.
Yeah. Like you said, people would doubt that whether we are legit, right? It's a new brand.
Yeah,
That's also a
exactly.
reason. And
Well,
what
that's the
we
thing, right? It's always like you guys are like new brand, and you guys are like based in Hong Kong/China, right? And,
yeah.
and yeah.
Well, we as a new brand, we gotta impress the community.
Hmm.
So what can we do? This is the question. And if we just do another like clone of certain famous analog synthesizers without much new stuff, that's not going to bring us to this place we have nowadays.
Yeah, it's true.
So we chose the route to do digital synth as our debut product. And like you said, that's very flexible, and we can expand. And we have our own chip, so we have the engineers, we have all the resources, and we have a team of keyboard engineers as well. So we knew that there's the possibility to make polyphonic aftertouch happen. So all these new technologies combined then, and we have this product.
Yeah. And probably would that have, since you guys are going digital, would that play a role with the pricing too? Compared to like if you guys do all analog, would that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're a new brand and you're selling analog with not relatively low priced, it's hard to get it selling, right?
Yeah, because like that's the thing. What amazed me with your product is when I started using it, and then I was like, wow, for the price that I pay for this could be easily worth like at least twice as much. It's like the direct, most people compare your synth, the hydrasynth, probably with the Novation Peak, right? That's kind of like what I see on the internet. They seems to always compare it with Novation Peaks, even though it's completely different product. It is. It's
Right.
but I guess because Novation Peak is basically a digital synth, right? I think. Is it?
I think they have an analog filter.
Oh, analog filter, but the rest is digital. It's a digital oscillator,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken.
But it's also a good sounding synth.
Yeah. So yeah, it sounds really nice too. And the Novation Peaks basically cost twice as much, pretty much, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. So when I saw this, I was like, wow, this thing could have easily worth being sold for that price, and even if you buy it at that price, you would still feel that it's worth the money, So, and the fact that you guys are selling it for that price, I think it was like, what was it, $759 or $769 for the desktop in the US dollar?
$799.
Yeah, it's like about $800. Yeah, about $800 for that synth. That's, you get a lot. Yeah, you get a lot for what you pay. So I think that's really great. And hold on.
Yeah, that's the route that we chose, because we want to have more people to own it, instead of making it a boutique brand that only only a small amount of people can use it, right?
No, I guess it's a different way of selling, right? Because I know there is this one Japanese synth company. I think they make like a boutique synth. I forgot what it's called. It's their name is like inspired by Blade Runner. Something. I think they just released one that's like basically they try to clone the CS80 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And they were selling that for like almost $4,000 for that thing.
Well, they have their fans, I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's for sure. Yeah, different targets.
Different targets. But I mean, yeah, I understand where you're coming from, though. With you guys being a brand new, a new brand, you guys was like trying to get out there. And I think it's like, and I think it was such a success with that first product that you guys launched. With that.
Thank you.
So, yeah. And then speaking of this, how do you use your synth, using synth in your production? How do you do it?
Well, I use both hardware and software synthesizers. The software synthesizers, the advantage is you can get the sounds you want really quick. When you need to be efficient, and you can record stuff really quickly in the computer, right? You can work in a box or even portable. You can work outside.
Yeah, and I found that to be very convenient too when we were doing our collaboration, because when we did our collaboration, Dominic was in Hong Kong and I was in Jakarta, and having the same soft synth kind of makes the work a lot easier, because we don't have to save everything in audio, so it's faster. Yeah.
Yes, which compared to hardware synths, it can also be an advantage that you cannot reverse, right? So for some analog synths that don't have presets, you need to play it, set a sound, play it, and then record it in audio, and there's no return.
Mhm.
That's also the fun part, that you have to
Yeah.
play it right. Or, I mean, just try to keep things moving on instead of too focused on only one element, and you can hardly finish stuff if you work like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because like I was like recently I had a chat with another Ableton Certified Trainer, which is based in Hong Kong too, and he was asking me the same questions too. Like how do you make it? How do you optimize your workflow? So you can kind of like, well, especially he asked me like when I mix, like how do you do it? And I say I just turn everything into audio because then you commit and then that's it. You can go back to that one. What's done's done. So you move on,
Yeah,
and that way I can get my work done a lot faster instead of getting stuck on like fixing the tail end of a reverb or like the decay of a synth for like the next 5 hours, right? Trying to get it perfect.
right. Although I have to confess that even sometimes they're printed as audio, I'll still do some movements and stuff. Right.
Yeah,
We can
yeah,
still
yeah,
make
yeah.
changes.
He
It's
does that.
easy.
He does that. When we were working on our tunes, I was like, he, I asked him like, dude, you have all this like analog synth. Can you use that? So our tune's gonna sound like really analog, even though, yeah, man. Speaking of that, analog and digital, that's gonna be the next thing we're gonna be talking about. It's like, but at that time I was saying, uh, because I want our tunes to be like sounding really, really analog, right? So he recorded that, and then the file came back to me, and then I opened it. I thought it's gonna be done, right? It's just like audio file. No, man, we
Right.
added more filter with like shitload of like automation in it. I'm like, what? Yeah, but
Well, that's
that's
fine.
yeah, but it was fun though. That's like he say, like even if you record it in audio, there is always a way for you to fix it or tinker
Yeah,
it.
and
And
that's the great part of technology. We have so
Mhm.
many options right now, and things can be translated right away, and you can retouch them right away in the
Yeah,
way that you
yeah,
want.
hmm
So most importantly is that you have to know what you want to
yeah,
achieve them.
exactly. That's
Yeah,
always
instead of just wasting time and you have no idea what you're doing and just touching that kick and touching that snare for 2 nights
yeah.
and not making
No,
any
I'm
progress.
right. Remember when we were working on our track. I think I spent like every time I came back to you, the snare changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like I'm like obsessed with snare drum, so that's basically like I tinker most of my time was on that snare drum. But yeah, yeah, earlier I was mentioning about like analog versus digital. How like some people say analog sounds better, while some people say nah, digital sounds just as good.
Hmm.
Well, both of us use both, right? So we're kind of like
Exactly.
the people in the middle kind of thing, right? So, um, what's your personal opinion about that?
Um, well, I think people have the impression of analog synthesizers from early analog synths, early
Hmm.
vintage ones, I mean, from decades
Yeah.
ago. And they tend to have their interesting characteristics in their sounds. Say for the stability of the oscillator, they are not that stable, which gave their warmer tones because they have some kind of detuned sounds
Hmm.
to thicken the output. And the filters, they're like signature filters from Moog, and a lot of other products try to, I mean, to emulate those or
Yeah.
model those classic filters. And
Yeah. For
these are
example,
what shaped, yeah,
for example, like the Korg MS-20, even in Ableton, all their filter is trying to emulate the Korg MS-20 filter, right? With the MS2
yeah,
filter model, right? That's
exactly.
yeah.
You just use what's in your hands. Actually,
Hmm.
I have the MS-20, MS-10, MS-50. I have the filters, but when I'm working in Ableton Live with that analog soft synth, right, I also use that MS2 filter. So whenever I feel like which I want to use, I just use them. I don't need to say like, okay, I'm compromising here or whatever. In the mix, you can't tell, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of like what I always find, like my personal opinion about analog versus digital. It's always it comes down to what I find is like most people actually can't tell. Most people don't even know because I remember I was like I was playing one of my tune to been in front of the audience, and the first thing that a comment is like, "Wow, this sounds so analog." It's like it's crazy, and like I'm like, no, man, it's all done using the built-in Ableton synthesizer. I was just using
Mm-hmm.
analog. Yeah, it's called analog, but it's not
Yeah.
analog per se. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's
most people
analog.
don't, and that's the thing, right? A lot of people was that because if you this is going back to hydrasynth, with hydrasynth being a digital synth, and you guys are really proud of it, of your product being digital synth. And you guys even
Yes.
put that your motto in the front, and like digital is the new analog. That's what you guys have on your website when
Yes.
so of course, then naturally a lot of people kind of like bad mouthing it. Like some people, like if you see people review it on YouTube and then you read the comment, I mean, like that's always the most entertaining part about YouTube, right? It's not the actual video,
Yeah.
but it's actually reading the comment.
The
And then
comments.
you always have these people that say, yeah, but it's a hydrasynth is digital. It doesn't make like good bass. It's like it doesn't make a gnarly bass or something like that. Yeah, it's not made for bass. It's made for pads. It makes beautiful pads, but it's not making good bass. But and the thing I think, you know, uh, people should try it and listen to it in person
Yeah,
before
exactly.
criticizing, because I make drum and bass, and I use the hydrasynth, and I can vouch that that thing make nasty basses. So, so
Yeah. From
at,
Lawrence, right?
yeah, so I can vouch for that. That thing can make nasty bass. So at the end, we have all this keyboard warrior that never actually use the real, like some people they were like, "Well, I have people that say, oh, analog sounds better," and I said, what synth do you have? And they don't have any synth. They're using Arturia V. Dude, that's
Mm.
digital. I mean, like, how can you say that analog is better when you don't have one? That's kind of
Yeah. At the end of
that.
the day, it's an instrument. You can't.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, I mean, you can't watch a video of the Steinway Grand and then, oh, this doesn't sound good on YouTube. Yeah, Steinway sucks. Yeah, there's no
Mm.
point.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
you have to play them,
Uh-huh.
actually to feel them, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, you don't do comments like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the internet anyway. We can't
Yeah, and
stop them, and it's fun to
also
read them.
Yeah, also another thing that I find it interesting is how, like, especially if you look at Instagram, if you're like following like the hashtag like synthesizers, synthpatcher, and all those hashtags, where like people just like show their synthesizer on their sequence and things like that.
Hmm.
If you notice, almost all those people plug everything into some kind of pedal effects, right? So
Quite
at
a
the
lot
end,
of them. Yeah.
yeah, I think 90% of them, that's what they do, right? They plug their synth into a pedal effect. So at the
Hmm.
end, it doesn't really matter whether your synth is digital or analog, right? Because it's either you're running it through a digital effect or you're running it through analog effect. At the end, it's the same thing. It's either your signal is converted into digital or it's converted into
Yeah.
analog synths. So at the end, it's really,
DAAD, DAAD. Yeah.
yeah. At the end, there is no difference about it. It's a matter of like what was it? Someone was telling me it's not the tools, man. It's the person that use it. Does he know how to use it or not? I think that's the most important thing
Exactly.
that people need to remember about synthesizer and or any musical instruments. It's all about like the person behind it. You know?
Yeah. Just makes use of what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So yeah,
I
so
think I think digital synths is is not the same thing as a decade ago already.
yeah,
Digital
exactly.
synths that doesn't mean that's a VA synth. We don't have to
Hmm.
do virtual analog nowadays, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly.
like a couple of decades ago, those VA synths they have stepping in the knob movements. So the filters
Hmm.
they're stepping and the oscillators sounds. I mean, not that high resolution.
Yeah,
But nowadays the
yeah.
technology evolved and you can do a lot of crazy things or great emulation of analog already. So it's
Mhm.
about exploring more of shaping sounds instead of we're still staying in that era and oh that's not close enough to that kind of sound. Yeah, if you like that direct, I mean that very direct control on analog, just get an analog. I mean that's not a problem.
Yeah, plus if you want to think about it, right? Like there is a company like Roland that basically say that like they will never re-release all their analog synth anymore, right?
Right.
Because they're happy with their System 8 and their analog emulation with their right. And I mean, like if any of you guys have ever tried it, the Roland Cloud, which is their subscription service, where you get to pay I think $20 a month, which is quite expensive. $20 a month, and you get the library of all their classic synth. And I tried it, and I'm impressed. You know, and this is coming from Roland, right? I mean, like they used to make analog synth, and now they're actually saying that like we're not going to release those because our emulation is just as good. You know, when I was trying that, and I was trying the Juno 106 one, which is like Dominic mentioned earlier, I have one, but it's waiting for service until today. It's I tried that, and I was really impressed, you know, because even they even remodeled the noises that Juno 106 make.
Yeah, from the chorus.
Like, yeah, so that's just like how I mean, like the technology have gone like leaps and bounds when it comes to like I have a virtual analog synthesizer that came out maybe 20 years ago. I think it was the Korg MS 2000, which sounds awesome at the time. I mean, like I don't know, I don't have it anymore, but they don't sound as good as it could be, I know, compared to the digital synth of today. But yeah, because the technology is constantly, it's rapidly improving, right?
Yeah, it's directly bringing impact to the music technology industry for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Because this is the whole digital emulation thing. It's not just on synthesizer, guys. It's actually on even on the processing software, right? Even like stuff like Slate and UAD, they come up with all this like amazing emulation of like this like classic analog hardware, and they sound really good. I mean, like some people will always argue that it's still not the real thing. But at the end, this is what I always tell my students when they ask, should we mix on hardware or should we mix on software or something? I always say, you know what? At the end, the people that are going to listen to your music, they're going to listen to it on their iPhone earbuds. Doesn't matter. You know, it's like whether it comes from analog hardware or from a software. Right.
Yeah, the majority just can't tell.
Exactly. Yeah, because like I'm my testing case is always my wife, right? I mix something and then I tell her, "Do you notice anything different?" And she's always gonna say, "Nope." And then in the beginning when I do that, I always feel dejected. I spend like 3 hours on that snare, and you can't tell the difference. At the end, I realized, you know what? 90% of the people out there will not be able to tell.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so I think that whole argument about digital versus analog, it's pointless. Right. I think at the end,
no, just spend your time on music.
Yeah, exactly. Just focus on making music. Exactly, Dominic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about this. Yeah. So now we're gonna talk about gas. You know, that's like one thing. Like if we are into like synthesizer, you always hear this term gas, gear acquisition syndrome. Yeah. And I'm guilty of that. You know, prior to meeting Dominic, I never spent money on any synthesizer, and now I'm already like I'm about to buy like a new synth, like hopefully today or tomorrow. You know, that's gonna be like my fourth synth in like 2 years, which is some people buy more than I do, but for me that's like quite a big change, you know. And like and sometimes someone's wondering, you know, do I really need that or not actually? You know. It's like when I just got the hydrasynth, the first thing that popped in my head after 24 hours with it was, you know what? I don't ever need to buy another synth because this synth can do anything that I want. That's what I said.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, and this happens in like maybe not too long ago, March or something. So that's like only like no February. I bought it in February. So that's only like 3 months, 2 months ago, not even 3 months, but on the way to 3 months. And I'm already thinking about buying another synth, so, and, so guess is real, gear acquisition syndrome is real. How do you deal with that? Because I'm sure you have that issue too, right?
If I tell you I don't have it, I'll be lying.
Yeah, look at your
But
studio. It's like-
but I I think that the most important thing is you keep learning. You keep learning things from the synths or instruments or devices you buy, right? You I mean, you have to get things out of that, not just buying things and take some photos and upload them to show off, and then later you see it sneak in secondhand market.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
We know people like that.
Yeah, a lot of that.
I I used to buy a lot of vintage synths, and I got rid of a lot of them and stripped down. But I would say the synths I had played with, I learned things from them. Like MS-2000, I had it before. Cork Radius, I had that before. Like I mean, even VA. There are interesting things in those designs, and there are things to learn.
Yeah,
So that's what I think. And you have to get inspired from those instead of having the mindset to collect and show off and then sell and collect new ones. That's kind of pointless.
yeah,
So
exactly.
now I actually sell the stuff that I don't use, and well, the good thing is I know people who would really make use of them, and it's kind of interesting to still see the stuff I used to own and get used a lot by their new owner now.
Yeah, instead of sitting collecting dust somewhere in the corner
Yeah,
of your studio, right?
exactly.
Yeah. Plus, we can always use the money that we sell it to buy more gear, right?
Okay, space is another issue.
Yeah, but yeah, because I think gas is real. It's like, and I need to deal with that too. Because like, but you're right. Yeah, your point about like you must have a purpose for the gear that you buy, not just because that's the newest thing. That's very important, I think. Like with me,
Yeah.
the main reason why I want to buy that one synthesizer that I say I'm gonna buy either tonight or tomorrow is because all
Mm-hmm.
my stuff has been digital. I have a hydrasynth, I have a micro freak, and there is a micro brute, but it's not mine. So eventually I have to return that one. So basically, I don't have an analog synth, like a pure analog
Mm-hmm.
synth. So I saw this one. It's quite inexpensive. I mean, so I think this should be just to have one, to play with, because I want to have like an analog synth. So that's the thing. And I say this after this, I'm done. Of course, I hope I'm really done. But you never know.
Yeah, it would be good if you have the chance to play in shops or have
Yeah.
the actual thing to play with if your friends have them.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
would, I mean, you can summarize more easily than
Yeah.
like browsing randomly in the internet.
Well, that's the thing, right? You're in Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, you have like a lot of big music store where you can actually just come and play around. Like I think when I was
Yeah,
there, Dennis took me to this one store
Totally.
by yeah, it's like the really really big one.
Yeah.
And I was in it, and I was like, wow, this reminds me like back in the days when I was still in States, where like I just hang out at Guitar Center and try anything new there. In Indonesia,
Mm.
unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. We
Mm-hmm.
can't really just go to a store and just to try out thing, because most stores, like, if we go there and we want to buy that, and then they have to order it because they don't have it in stock, kind of thing. So we just
Yeah,
kind of
it's still the same case for some certain brands for sure.
hmm
So that'd be good to talk to people who really know
yeah.
what they're talking about. I mean,
hmm
talk to friends that who had played with it to ask for opinions
yeah.
instead of reading stuff online randomly.
Reading stuff online, it's kind of weird, right? Like there is this one synthesizer that if you read basically review from some company, it's pretty big company. It starts with K, but I don't want to mention the name. Starts with K. It's a Japanese company, but this one analog synth that's not super expensive. It's like maybe about $500-$600 or something range, at least if you convert it to Indonesian money. And if you read every review, they're saying like this is like such a good synthesizer for best bang for the buck, something like that. But and then I've talked to like a bunch of my friends that have one or had one, and they say, no, don't buy it. It sucks. So I figured I should trust the people that already use it, right? Instead of getting a review. Because I mean, I haven't heard a single person in here that had played with it or had it that likes it. So but the review says it's good. So that's the
that's
thing.
very subjective.
Exactly, it's very subjective. So I wish obviously the best way is always like go to the store or at least try it yourself.
Yeah.
Because something that you might not like and other people might not like, that might be just the exact thing that you need or you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I have to wrap up here because this is like almost 5. So thanks Dom for joining us.
No problem. Thanks for inviting.
Yeah, see, there is a DJ Sawyers asking me what synth am I buying. Yeah, I'll DM you.
Something that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah, well, it's something cheap. It's not expensive. So, but yeah. So anyway, before we sign off though, do you want to share some secret with us? Maybe like what's ASM's next product gonna be? New update, new product, new synthesizer, maybe new drum machine.
I can't talk about that, but it will be cool. Maybe we can talk about our new collaboration instead.
Oh yeah, we're actually working on a new song. So our first song is actually it's a drum and bass song. So it's under Random versus Polly Pumpkins. So on this next song, we're going his route. We're doing like a full-on synthwave track, and then we have another one coming up. If we ever finish this one track that we're working on, then we already have another track cooking up, which is another drum and bass track. So that's gonna be, I don't know when it's gonna be out because I need to finish mixing it first, obviously.
Yeah, we'll see.
yeah, and yeah. So no, you guys. Yeah, well, okay, we'll wait. I'm sure it's gonna be something cool. From yeah. And yeah, before we sign off though, guys, thank you for everybody that has joined in this live Instagram. And if you guys are interested in learning more about synthesizer and music production, especially the electronic music, or even music production in general, then please just head to our website at sae.edu to find more information about all our diploma programs and also our short courses that's available, which just explore that. Maybe you find something of your interest and you can learn, and I can guarantee you learning at SAE is always fun because we don't just read books, we actually get to do it. So okay. So all right, once again, thank you, Dominic. And and somebody else asking, where did you get your shirt from, Dom?
Oh, that's a great shirt.
Yeah.
It's from our fellow certified trainer in Hong Kong, Mr. Ed Rollo.
Yeah.
So was he the one that you mentioned about asking about mixing stuff?
Yeah, he is. By the way, Ed Rollo is another and he's here. He was here earlier. I don't know if he's still here or not.
Shout out to him.
But shout out to Ed. Yeah, he's really cool. He hooked me up with some of his courses. Awesome guy, cool guy. Yeah, so shout out to Ed. And all right, anyway, thanks, Dom, and
great talking to you.
Hopefully we'll do this again soon.
Sure.
All right. Okay, all right. Once again, thank you for everyone that's tuning in, and okay, well, I'm just gonna sign off. Okay, all right.
Okay,
Bye, guys.
see you. Bye.
Bye.